Investing is not about picking stocks. Really, it's not. Ask your friends what they think investing means, and I bet they'll say picking stocks. Guys, you cannot reliably pick stocks that they will outperform the market over the long term. It's way too easy to make mistakes, such as being overconfident about choices and panicking when your investments shouldn't drop even a little. As we saw in chapter 6, even experts can guess what will happen to the next stock market. But because they've heard it repeatedly from the many investment blogs and YouTube videos, people think that investing is about picking winning stocks and that anyone can be successful. They can't. I hate to say it, but not everyone is a winner. In fact, most of these so-called financial experts are a failure. Anyway, the little known fact is that the major predictor of your portfolio's volatility doesn't stem from the individual stocks that you pick, as most people think, but instead from your mix of stocks and bonds. In 1986, researchers Gary Brinson, Rodolfo Hood, and Gilbert B. Bohr published a study in Financial Analysis Journal that rocked the financial world. They demonstrated that more than 90% of your portfolio's volatility is the result of your asset allocation. I know asset allocation sounds like a BS phrase like mission statement or strategic alliance, but it's not. Asset allocation is your plan for investing the way you distribute the investments in your portfolio between stocks, bonds, and cash. In other words, by diversifying your investments across the different asset classes, like stocks and the bonds, or better yet, stock funds and the bond funds, you can control the risk in your portfolio and therefore control how much your money, on average, you will lose due to volatility. It turns out that the way you allocate your portfolio, whether it's 100% stocks or 90% stocks and 10% bonds, makes a profound difference on your returns. Later, other researchers tried to measure how close volatility and returns were correlated, but the answer ends up being pretty complicated. Suffice to say that asset allocation is the most significant part of your portfolio that you can control. Think about that remarkable fact. Your investment plan is more important than your actual investments. If you allocate your money properly, for example, not all in one stock, but spread out across the different kinds of funds, you won't have to worry about a single stock possibly cutting your portfolio's value in half. Indeed, by diversifying your investments, you will make more money as an individual investor. To know how to allocate your assets, you have to know the basic options you have for investing, which is where we'll head next. Since you cannot successfully time the market or select individual stocks, asset allocation should be the major focus of your investment strategy because it is the only factor affecting your investment risk and the return that you can control. Target date funds, the pyramid of investing options. More convenience, less control, more predictable returns over the long term. Index funds and mutual funds, some are convenient, can have a lower fee index funds or high fees, many mutual funds. More control than target date funds, less control than stocks or bonds. Returns are fairly predictable over the long term. Stocks, bonds, cash. Individual stocks and bonds are very inconvenient to choose and maintain high control. That's a high control, right? That's a control. High control. Okay. Individual stocks offer extremely unpredictable returns that often fail to beat the market, but sometimes transit. Bonds offer extremely predictable returns, but on average return less than stocks. Stocks. When you buy stock, you buy shares of company. If the company does well, you expect your stock in it to do well. When people talk about the market, they're usually referring to the index of the stocks like Dow Jones, 30 large cap stocks, or the S&P 500. 500 companies with the large market capitalization. Investment investment nerds may be wondering, what's the difference between the indexes? There are many differences, but in general, they are not really important to your personal finances. Each index is like a college. There are committees that determine certain criteria for following companies on 30 companies on their index, and they may change those criteria over time. Overall, stocks as a category provide excellent returns. As we know, on average, the stock market returns about 8% per year. In fact, you can do significantly better than the market if you pick if you pick a winning stock, or significantly worse if you pick a loser. Although stocks as a whole provide generally excellent returns over time, individual stocks are less clear. If you invest all your money in one stock, for example, you might make a huge return, but it's also possible the company could tank and you could lose it all. Okay, stocks have been a good way to earn significant returns over the long term, but I discourage you from picking individual stocks because it's extremely difficult to choose winning ones you're on your own. Okay, bonds. Bonds are essentially IOUs from companies or the government. Technically, bonds are longer-term investments of 10 plus years, whereas certificates of deposits, or CDs, involve lending money to a bank. Because they are very similar, let's just call them both. Bonds to simplify things. If you buy a 1-year bond, it's the same as if the bank says, hey, if you lend us $100, we'll give you $103 back a year from now. The advantage of bonds are that you can choose the term or length of time you want to loan to last. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so on, and you know exactly how much you will get when they mature or pay out. Also, bonds, especially government bonds, are generally stable and let you decrease the risk in your portfolio. See, the only way you'd lose money on a government bond is if the government defaulted on its loans, and it doesn't do that. If it runs low on money, it just prints more of it. Now that's gangster. But because the bonds are such a safe, low, low risk investment, the return, even a highly graded bond, is much lower than it would be on excellent stock. Investing in bonds also renders your money illiquid, meaning it's locked away and inaccessible for a set period of time. Technically, you can withdraw early, but you will face severe penalties, so it's a bad idea. In general, rich people and old people like bonds. Old people like them because they want to know exactly how much money they're getting next month for their medication or whatever it is they need. Also, some of these grannies and grandfathers can't withstand the volatility of the stock market because they don't have much other income to support themselves. and or they have a very little time left on this earth to recover from any downturn. Rich people, on the other hand, tend to become more conservative because they have so much money. Put it this way, when you have $10,000, you want to invest aggressive to grow it because you want to make more money. But when you have $10 million, your goal is to switch aggressive growth to preservation of capital. Yes. I keep my money in treasury bonds, he applied. Oh, they don't make you much money, a trader shouted back. They do, Groucho said drily, if you have enough of them. If you have a lot of money, you will accept the lower investment returns in exchange for security and safety. So a guaranteed buy at a 3% or 4% is attractive to a wealthy person. After all, 3% of $10 million is still a lot. Cash, in investing terms, cash is money that's sitting on the sidelines, uninvested and earning only a little money in interest from money market accounts, which are basically high interest in saving accounts. Traditionally, cash has been the third part of the portfolio alongside stocks and bonds. You want to have total liquid cash on hand for emergencies and as a hedge if the market tanks. Of course, you pay a price for this security. Cash is the safest part of your portfolio, but it offers the lowest reward. In fact, you actually lose money holding cash once you factor inflation in. That's why I say it's traditionally been part of your portfolio. As long as you're contributing toward your savings goals as I described in chapter 5 and have enough to cover emergencies and ideally more, you're fine. Don't worry about having cash in your investment account. Let's keep this simple. Asset allocation, the critical factor that most investors miss. It is important to diversify within stocks, but it's even more important to allocate across different asset classes like stocks and bonds. Investing in only one category is dangerous over the long term. This is where the all-important concept of asset allocation comes into play. Remember it like it. Okay, you should know that the past is no predictor of future results. In determining where to allocate your assets, one of the most important considerations is what returns in each category offers. Of course, based on the different types of investments you make, you can expect different returns. Higher risk generally equals a higher potential for reward. Take a look at the chart of a at first glance, it seems clear that stocks return the most, so let's all invest there. Not so fast. Remember, higher rewards entail higher risk, so if you're loaded up on the stocks in your portfolio dips at 35% next year, all of a sudden you're financially immobile, eating only triscuits, waiting to see whether your money climbs back up or you die first. Your asset allocation is actually one of the most important decisions you will make in life. It's a decision that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to you, and for some, millions. But in a peculiar quirk in human nature, we are more likely to talk about new restaurant or TV show instead of our asset allocation. Asset allocation has real-world consequences. For example, many of us have heard of 50 or 60 years old who saw catastrophic drops in their portfolios during the last recession. Their assets were not properly allocated. They also never had invested in all equities. Not should they have sold during the downturn had they stayed in the market. Age and risk tolerance matter. If you're 25 years old and have dozens of years to grow your money, a portfolio made up of mostly stock based funds probably makes sense. But if you're older, retirement is coming up within a few decades, and you want to tame down your risk. Even if the market tanks and you have control over your asset allocation, if you're older, especially if you're in your 60s and older, for God's sake, a sizable portion of your portfolio should be in stable bonds. Bonds acts as a counterweight to stocks, generally rising when stocks fall and reducing the overall risk of your portfolio. By investing part of your money in bonds, you reduce some of your overall risk. Sure, if that biotech stocks went up 200%, you'd wasted a bond the money was in all in the stock. But if the stock went down, you'd be glad your bonds were. There is a buffer against losing everything. Although it may seem counterintuitive, your portfolio will actually have better overall performance if you add the bonds to the mix, because bonds will generally perform better when stocks fall and the bonds lower your risk a lot while limiting your returns on a little. Government and ultra safe investment that's backed by the government in exchange for their own risk. Government bonds tend to return less than stocks value. Stocks then seem bargain priced. For example, cheaper than they should be. Once you've won the game, there is no reason to take unnecessary risk. Diversification is about safety in the long term. The fact that performance varies so much each asset class means two things. First, if you try to make a quick buck off investing, you will usually lose money because you have no idea what will happen in the near future. Anyone who tells you they do is a fool or commission based on salesman. Second, you should own different categories of stocks and maybe bonds to balance out your portfolio. You don't want to own your US small cap stocks, for example, or funds that own only small cap stocks. If they didn't perform well for 10 years, that would really suck. If, however, you own small cap stocks plus large cap stocks plus international stocks, and more, you are effectively insured against any one area dragging you down. So if you were to invest in stocks, you don't want to diversify. Buying all different types of stocks or stock funds to have a balanced portfolio. These allocations are just the general rules of thumb. Some people prefer to have 100% in the stocks until they're in their 30s or 40s. Others are more conservative and want some money in bonds. But the big takeaway here is that if we're in our 20s and 30s, we can afford to be aggressive about investing in stocks and stock funds, even if they drop temporarily, because time is on our side. And honestly, if you're nervous about the investing and just starting out, your biggest danger isn't having a portfolio that's too risky. It's being lazy and overwhelmed and not doing any investing at all. That's why it's important to understand the basics but not get wrapped up in all variables and the choices. Over time, you can manage your asset allocation to reduce the risk and get a fairly predictable return on investment. 30 years from now, you're going to need to invest very different from how you do today. That's just natural. You invest much more aggressively in your 30s than your 60s. When you find yourself growing older and telling long-winded stories about your treasury 3 miles in the snow to get to school every morning, all of these sounds are completely reasonable. I invest aggressively when I'm younger, and as I get older, I get more conservative. There's just one problem. One problem? What kind of problem is it? No, I don't think so. Okay, mutual fund. Index fund. Okay, index funds. Okay, I think I should stop here. The English version of book.